We're live.
We might be. Let's give it just a second here and verify that we are. Okay, I'm pretty sure we're live. Hey, everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy, and welcome to Grumpy Tonight. Norma just disappeared. Uh-oh.
I did?
You did?
Oh, crap.
All right, I am here with Dr. Lawrence Pasternack and Norma Sapp, most of the CLA. Let's make sure we are on the right place here. Okay, yep, it's working. Lawrence Pasternack.
I disappeared, didn't I?
You did.
Oh, I'm back.
Well, there you are. You're back. What a deal. Well, hello, everybody. How you doing tonight?
I just did a patient drive at a dispensary, so I'm beat up.
How was it?
Small, 15 people.
Well, that's more than some of them lately. I hear those aren't really a huge draw these days. Is that the case?
For that place, yeah. I think the Friendly Market in Norman is still filling it up every year. I mean, every other week, every other Friday, they do it at either store.
Okay. Well, Lawrence, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm kind of tired by this point. Spent the whole day going back and forth between academic work, going through all these bills. I spent a lot of time reading through these bills. Have been on the phone with various lawmakers and others in the cannabis world, talking about these bills and issues and so forth. So it's been a long, busy day.
So this is the culmination of all of your hard work for the last 24 hours.
Yeah. Yep. I started.
I'll find out what you've been up to. So, hey, before we get started, Norma, you said that, I just wanted to throw this out there. Well, last time you were on, we talked about growing in the industry, and you said after that, some of the people started paying more. So I just wanted to say big shout out to those that caught on and started paying the trimmers more. Great job. So,
well, that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to warn people to what to be aware of, you know.
Right. Well, you deserve it. So anyway, Lawrence, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing the last 24 hours, because that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're going to have Lawrence kind of highlight some bills and a little bit about them, and then Norma and I are going to see what kind of crazy questions we can come up about them and just get a good look at what's coming in the next session. Go ahead, Lawrence.
So all the bills for this session have been filed. That doesn't mean the final language has been. Language in a lot of bills are going to change. Sometimes we just have shell bills, but nevertheless, they've all been filed. So I searched the word marijuana through all the bills from the House and from the Senate this year. I think there were about 48 bills where the word marijuana appeared, and I read them all.
That's a lot of reading. I appreciate you putting all that effort into it.
With the qualification that there were some that were very, very short, so it didn't take very long, and then others that I knew the language is going to substantially change, so I didn't sort of go through them thoroughly because I knew that those were effectively kind of like shell bills, but there's quite a few pieces to go over.
Yeah, before we move forward, let's make sure everyone understands this. First off, please share, like, and share this video. I see some of you doing it already. Raymond, I just saw you share it. Thank you. I see our friend Mark Woodward is watching also. Thanks for watching, Mark. Anyway, before we go any farther, let's make sure everybody understands. Like Lawrence just said, these bills have been filed. Not all the bills that are filed are going to make it to the governor's office. I think about 10% make it to the governor's desk. Is that about right, Norma?
Well, depends on the year and how many are about one subject. We've got like duplicate ones having to deal with the initiative process.
Okay, well, so I know the news said earlier there was over 1,000 filed from the Senate, and they weren't sure of the number on the House. If it's like normal, it's just over 3,000, or no, just over 1,500. So between the two of them, it usually hits around 3,000 from my knowledge, from what I know. I could be wrong. Maybe Representative Fettgetter or somebody is watching. They can put in the comments and let everybody know how many are filed on an average year. And about what percentage of those end up on the governor's desk. Like I said, I think it's around 10%. I think I got that from Representative Fettgetter, but maybe he can verify that for us. So while we want to be concerned about all these, happy about some of them, not so happy about others, we don't want to freak out too bad because we still have plenty of time to work on everything. Like Lawrence also said there, not all the languages in some of them. Amendments can be added to some of them. We know of a few changes that will be made to some of them. I know of some possible changes we're looking at for the Kratom bill again this year. So, it's everything's not set in stone yet, but we want to get a good look at what they are suggesting anyway, and see where we can go from there. All right, Lawrence, take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to put in the comments here right now. Those of you who are looking at the page, Chris Mo Grumpy, I suppose. So Chris, this is your homepage.
Yeah, I haven't shared to the pages yet. I'm going to do that while you're talking. I'm going to be sharing.
So I'm going to put into the comments right here a link so people can go to the list of all the bills. So once I made it through all the bills, and I just have quick notes that I put together in a spreadsheet, I turned it into a PDF, and then I put the PDF on the OCLA website. So I just added the link to the comment. So anybody who wants to follow along with all the bills. And we're not going to cover this, as you can tell, there's a lot of bills if you're looking already at the list, and we're not going to cover every different cranny of them. But anybody who has a particular bill that they want to talk about, mention it in the comments on Chris's page, and one of us hopefully will spot it, and then we can look at that in more detail. I'm not going to be able to cover every issue, and so the thing about this is kind of a first run, a way in which everybody can kind of just sort of get generally acquainted with what's on the table this year. And so I imagine we're going to be having more shows as we move forward, and other groups are going to have shows as we move forward through this session that's going to be talking about some of the more significant bills.
Okay, one more thing before you move on. Norma, are you set up where you can see comments also?
I can. I'll watch.
Great. I'll be counting on you to help do a lot of that. And let's just take a minute and all wish Ron Durbin good health. We hear he's in the hospital. I guess there was a post or something. Ron, get better. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Okay, Lawrence, go ahead.
Okay, so just to help orient you through some of the notations that I have here on the list, if you're going through it as well. And something I could always do is I could screen share. So maybe that's a way for us to start right now. Chris, you made me a co-host. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to screen share.
Okay.
And let me find the right one. Here we go. Okay. So
there we go.
Right. Can you guys see the list of bills here on a Adobe?
Yeah, the bills, big screen on the left, all three of us lined up on the right. We should be fine. Hopefully everybody else can see it too.
Okay, so first thing, I'm just going to go through my notation. I have these bills ordered by number, House bills and then Senate bills. And so when you see the N/A, those are bills where the word marijuana appears, but it's not that there's any sort of new language related to them. So sometimes there'll be some change in some legislation. Like, for instance, the list of all the illegal drugs, heroin and cocaine and all those other things that just, traditionally have the word marijuana in there still as a Schedule I drug. There's no change to anything related to marijuana, but the word marijuana just happens to appear. So some of the ones that I have listed here, just in case anybody wants to go back and look at them, because it's always possible I overlook something. The N/A are those bills where it just didn't seem to me that there's any significant change or any change at all with regards to new language pertaining to marijuana, but nonetheless, they are up there. The word that says shall, obviously, those are shell bills. Those are just places where a lawmaker has filed something as a placeholder that they're going to put in language later. And then the other notation is that the omnibus bill that some of you might recall from last year, because of COVID, we combined together all the bills that pertain to marijuana that was supposed to be voted on at once, and then the governor vetoed it. Well, that was House Bill 3228. And Fetgetter has refiled basically its equivalent, and Fetgetter and Durbin told me both that they're going to be making sizable changes to that language. They're in the process of doing so already. So even though they filed it with the language from last year, there's going to be a lot of changes still. And then Eccles likewise, House Bill 2646, looked to me like it was a resubmission of 3228. And I didn't go through that thoroughly because my understanding is that's also going to be quite substantially changed as well. Okay, so with those things now mentioned, I'm now going to go over the bills that have some significant content. House Bill 1017, and if you want me to go into any more depth, I could open up the bill and we could talk about it more. But this is anybody who goes to my website, the OCLA website, by the way, if you download the PDF, you're going to be able to use the House bill, the bill numbers as a hypertext to the website where they're located.
Meaning a direct link to the language, correct?
Right, direct link to the language on the legislative website. So Krista wants us to go over 2301. I'll just make a note of that. And as I see any other ones, I'll make a note of them and we can get to those. Okay, so first of all, pretty much every one of the authors is a Republican. Down here, we have Hicks, who's a Democrat. I'm not sure. I think that might be the only Democrat who's filed anything related to cannabis. There might be one other. So first of all, Phillips. There's just it's a criminal justice bill, and the bill basically says that if somebody receives a suspended sentence for whatever it is, right, for whatever the crime is, if somebody receives a suspended sentence, that the suspended sentence cannot be revoked merely in virtue of getting a card or using medical marijuana.
So a drug test with your probation officer wouldn't be able to cause your suspended or that sentence to be revoked.
Right. So the suspended sentence, it doesn't pertain specific necessarily to parole and probation, right? But to suspended sentences.
But a suspended sentence comes with probation. That's the thing. It's suspended for usually suspended for a certain amount of time. And if you stay out of trouble during that time, then it's reduced or dropped depending on what.
I'm not sure about this, but I think that there could be sort of two categories, right? So you could be on probation. You could also have a suspended sentence, but honestly, I'm not sure about it.
Okay, well, we'll have to look. I'll look at that.
Ask an attorney about whether or not somebody could have a suspended sentence and then probation afterwards or something like that. I'm just okay.
So I get a lot of contacts about that issue on probation, everything. And so that bill could be the one that we need to add the language to make it uniform across the state because counties are not uniform right now.
Right.
Okay.
So hopefully it extends over all those kinds of scenarios, suspended sentence and probation. Now, it does allow for an exception. So basically, they can't revoke your suspended sentence if you're just using medical marijuana, with exceptions. So they might say, in this case, this does become relevant. So, you know, if like one of the examples would be that if it was a criminal vehicular punishment, and you were under the influence of lots of drugs, including marijuana, then the judge might rule that maybe they'll give you a suspended sentence, but you can't be using marijuana. Right?
Okay, so if it's an exception that the judge puts in the sentence, I can understand that. If it's just an open except for exceptions, my concern would be that just means that, again, it's back to where we're at now, where it's up to the different probation and parole officers. But we'll have to get farther into that bill later on. Let's go ahead and move forward. That's a good start.
Okay. House Bill 1054, this is sort of overlapping with an issue pertaining to marijuana, which is that this legislator wants to introduce a 44% tax on the wholesale cost of a vaping device. So if you were to buy, what are they called, mods or something, you know, some device to smoke or to vape cannabis or tobacco with or whatever, they want to impose a 44% tax on it.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. On the cartridge or the
on the electronic device,
on the battery.
Device.
Yeah, the battery.
Right. The battery, or sometimes there are batteries with a tank and like setups for, you know, your vape juice and things like that. So they want to impose a 44% tax on it.
Okay, so it'd be like vaping paraphernalia.
Specifically, I think it's the electronic device.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to maybe like a stir stick or, you know,
Okay.
whatever accessories. But 44% tax on, I believe it's the electronic device that might carry your vape juice or whatever, on the wholesale cost of that. And one of my thoughts is, well, you know, that'll just mean somebody will buy it online, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it just you know, this seems ridiculous to me. And so anyhow,
Well,
this might very well be one of those bills that never gets to the governor's desk.
while we don't want to laugh at them for filing the bill, that certainly, hopefully, isn't one that we see with much life in it.
Yeah. And
Yeah, we do.
44% tax.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one, and there's an ambiguity in this, and I talked to Fetgetter about it today, and he said he'll look, and if needed, he'll fix it. So the excise tax of 7%, the Oklahoma Tax Commission wants some of that. So rather than the 7% going to exactly what 788 spells out and what current law spells out, the Oklahoma Tax Commission wants its cut.
And
And
what do
so
they want that 1.5% for?
So the reason is that there's medical marijuana businesses that are evading paying their taxes. Fetgetter said there was an example of somebody, some business owner who was bragging that he has evaded tax. He's evaded $300,000 worth of taxes owed. And so they want this money because it's costing them manpower to do the investigations, right?
So they want the money to make up for the shortfall because there are people breaking the law.
Well, what they said was they want the money to pay the people to do the forensic accounting and the other kinds of work needed to catch the people who aren't paying their taxes.
So they need it for operating expenses for the job we're asking them to do.
Right.
But do they need 1.5%? That kind of
So-
seems
so-
like a lot.
Right. So here's the ambiguity that I phoned Fetgetter about. The ambiguity is that 1.5% as a fraction of 7%. So basically, is that effectively about 22% of all the money that 7% brings in? Or is it 1.5% of all the money that it brings in? Right? So if I said, for instance, it keeps 3.5% of the 7%, that sounds like it keeps half of it. Or does it mean it keeps 3.5% of the total amount that's brought in? So imagine $1 million is brought in.
Doesn't that number work out to be the same? It doesn't work. The math doesn't work to be the same. Okay.
No,
All right. I'm
no,
not gonna
because
start doing that.
1.5 over 7 is about 22%.
Okay.
Right?
All
So
right. I see.
1.5% simpliciter
All right.
is just
Yeah.
1.5%.
Now I get it. Now I see the confusion.
Yeah.
Norma, do you see it?
Your confusion?
My confusion. Did you see my confusion, Norma?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see me get past it?
Yeah.
All right, we can move on now.
So, you know, even though I read through all this stuff very quickly, I when I saw that, I said, hey, wait a second, what does that mean? And Fetgetter said he'll look at it, he'll get back to it. And then presumably it means 1.5% of the total amount, right? So
Right.
if it's, you know, $1 million, it'll be 1.5% of $1 million, right? What's that? $15,000, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's presumably the intent, but the language I didn't think was clear on that.
Okay.
All right.
Before we go any farther, everybody, if you don't mind, please share this anywhere you can. Let's help everybody see this. And like Dr. Pasternack had said, if you have any particular bills or questions you want to get in, send them in. Norma, mostly, I'll be looking at them here in a minute. I've been sharing this a bit, but we'll be keeping an eye out for some questions, and we'll see what we can do to help you understand some of this.
Yeah.
All right, Lawrence, go ahead.
And I just put the link up again if you want to follow along with the list of bills. All right. So the next one is one that we as the OCLA were pushing, and something that we really wanted to get passed last year, which was delivery. And so, as some of you know, 3228 was vetoed, and the governor indicated a particular issue in opposition to delivery. And it's kind of hard to pin down what the concern was. We've had some conversations trying to get an understanding of what that concern was. But part of the logic for delivery is that there are people, some of whom are homebound, right? Some of whom, right, just have medical flare-ups, and some people have, other issues that impede their ability to get to a dispensary. So you may not necessarily need a caregiver. Like, let's say most of the time you're fine, but then you have an MS flare-up, right? Or you're in the middle of a PTSD, right, episode. And so you might want something brought to your house, and it makes a lot more sense to have it delivered than for you to have to get onto the highway or get onto the road when you're in physical agony, or you're having a panic attack. So it's like, it seems to me so clear as a matter of public safety and for the medical needs of people that we should have delivery. About half of all the states out there have delivery, and so it's not as if it's a rare thing. Delivery is quite common.
And I want to point out that, because it is relevant, that when the pandemic hit, the ABLE Commission was able to make delivery of alcohol almost right away. And then eventually the governor signed that into law to be permanent. That's alcohol. That's not saving people's lives. Granted, it might be helping some people through some withdrawals, might even help them through a bad day. I'm not saying no one should drink. I'm just saying that this is different. And if CVS can deliver all my prescriptions, and they can deliver almost everything, and we can have alcohol delivered at the same time. I could probably even have Uber pick up both. Then I should be able to get cannabis delivered if that's what I need. All right, go ahead, Lawrence.
All right, and so an issue that FETGetter raised last year was, well, we don't want to end up with like the Amazon of cannabis, where some wealthy company comes in and sets up like some giant warehouse and delivers all around the state. So his proposal was to restrict delivery to 10 miles. But then my concern to that was, well, what about people out in the panhandle, rural areas, where there may be no dispensary within those 10 miles? So the compromise that we came to was, if there is a dispensary within 10 miles, then you're limited to that 10-mile limit. But if there is no dispensary within those 10 miles, then you could use any dispensary within your county. And so that should cover pretty much everybody. So long as there is a dispensary in your county, then you'll be able to get delivery if needed.
Now, I think we've got to at least get the miles drastically increased. I understand the need to not want the Amazon of weed delivering all over the state. I get it. But that's just, it's too limited. If I want to order pizza from across the state, I'm betting I can pay them enough that they'd be willing to bring me a cold pizza.
Yeah, I think an issue is this, that if you're not really that picky, the 10 miles is probably not that big of a deal for you, right?
Right.
So
but if it's real,
indica, right?
right.
But again, when we think back to the issue of a medical patient who needs a 3-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC, right? Or who finds, linalool, or maybe something like osmine, or something even rarer, to be particularly significant to their medical needs, right? Then limiting it to 10 miles, if you're not in a city, right? If you're not in Tulsa or Oklahoma City, then you're not going to have a lot of options. And so, there are people who might travel some distance to the particular dispensary that carries what they want.
I'm 20 miles from the Friendly Market,
Yep.
and I'm in the same city.
The nearest dispensary to my place out in Muskogee is about 11 miles, and I'm not going to name them, but I wouldn't shop there.
Yep. And
So,
D. Coria mentions 30 miles to their nearest dispensary. So, I agree that I think 10 miles is inadequate. And I think if you're talking about Tulsa and Oklahoma City, the worry is, if you do have the, so to speak, the Amazon of weed for Tulsa and the Amazon of weed for Oklahoma City, they could have a significant impact, right, on the business communities in those two cities. But they're the exception for the state. So, some other solution might be needed, right? And so maybe there's a way of doing it, right, in terms of population density or whatever. But I think that 10-mile limit just doesn't make sense once you leave the major cities.
Or maybe a limited number of deliveries you can make each time you leave the dispensary.
Oh yeah, who's gonna go count those?
Well, I was going to say that may be hard to regulate, but there might be
Right.
another way, or at least a way to maybe raise those miles up a bit. And I'm going to tie that into something else that isn't yet on this list. And that is, Lawrence, your idea, which you've been pushing since the beginning of the program, which is, in a nutshell, compounding dispensaries, because a limit on delivery makes that even more appropriate. Because if I'm limited on where I can get my delivery from, maybe one of the couple, if there's only a couple or a few within my range, maybe one of them will be one that wants to step up and do what it is you're talking about with the compounding factor. And then I can get exactly what I need and have it delivered. Once you remind everybody about what that is.
Yes, let me talk about that, because I'd love it if more people sort of got on board with this and started to really promote the idea. And I have Echoes on board, I have FetGetter on board, I have Durbin on board. I've met with the director of the OMA, Kelly Williams, about this, and she seemed very much supportive of the idea. And the idea basically is that dispensaries should be able to make customized tinctures and vapes. That you should be able to go to a dispensary and you'd say, look, I need a 3-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC, or 3 parts CBD and 2 parts CBN and 1 part THC, or I want you to make me some combination with linalool and osamine, right? That if this is medicine, then we shouldn't be forced into just taking whatever they have for us, right? And so I want to make this legal for a dispensary to be able to mix these things individually for each patient. And I assume there aren't going to be a ton of people out there in the state who are that particular about their needs, but there are definitely some. And those are people that include pediatric patients, people have allergies to myrcene, which is not uncommon, people who are in chronic pain, need something with high CBD versus THC, which is harder to find. And so, I have suggested that, just like, and we'll get to this year, we have bills that are going to allow for pre-rolls. Adjacent to that pre-roll language, we should also allow dispensaries to make customized vapes and tinctures. And so I have worked out some language with FetGetter, with Durbin, and I have gone through it with the OMMA, and the intention is for that language to get into one of these bills during the committee at some point as a committee substitute.
Good for you.
Hopefully it happens, and I would love it if other people kind of help keep that ball alive, because it's people in chronic pain, for instance. Some people find that THC makes their pain worse, but they find that just a little bit of THC with high CBD is wonderful for pain. And try to find that in a rural dispensary.
Right.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody today that has recently come across some Harlequin over in Tulsa, but they live over here. And so now they're having to plan a special trip to Tulsa to go back and get that, because they can't find it anywhere around here.
That's right.
And luckily this particular person has work in that town next week, so he'll be able to get some, but not everybody's that fortunate. So they just have to go without. And if they can't get it delivered, then what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, and I talked to a business owner that makes ointments, and they only sell the ointments on the east side of the state, just basically because that's how their business relations have worked out, and they don't yet have enough connections, and they don't have, I suppose, a large enough quantity to sell to the entire state. So you want to use this ointment, you got to go to the other half of the state to buy it, right? So there's lots of ways of setting up delivery. You could have a delivery service that goes from the east part to the west part of the state on a weekly basis and ships things over. In addition to, of course, individual deliveries, right, to your house. There's just a need, right, for access that we're still lacking.
Right.
And I'm not going to give it away, but the worry is that the governor is going to veto it again. The worry is that the governor is going to veto it again. But Durbin and I have talked about an alternative plan to make that possible. But I personally believe that delivery is very, very important. One way or another, we need to focus upon people who are falling through the cracks.
I think it's a
Okay.
matter of talking to people that talk to the governor and
Right.
getting the right people to talk in his ear, and I think we'll get there.
So the next one is an absolutely huge one, and I guess the question is: do we want to go on to it right now, or do we want to sort of wait till the end? And the
Which-
huge one is, and I think we should probably wait till the end, and we'll probably have another show on this one too, is Representative Fetgetter's adult use, full access or recreational program. So
Let's
That's
have
something-
another show on it.
Yeah, that's something we're going to be talking about for a long time. So, and let's point out to everybody that is to put, if it was to get through the House and the Senate and the governor sign it, then that would only mean that it went on a ballot for us to vote on sometime in 2022, and it wouldn't take effect until January 1st of 2023. So we will jump back and forth to that bill a lot over the next few weeks. I'd ask all of you to go read that bill. I think he's already talking about changes to that bill. I think there's a lot of room in there to negotiate and work some of this out. And maybe we can get something that the whole state can get behind when we're done.
yeah,
Everybody gets involved.
Yeah, I left my copy of it downstairs, but I've already had some lengthy conversations about some changes that are needed. And so people who say, "Oh my God, this is terrible," right? That there's going to be lots of conversations and lots of changes. Right now, there's a place where the language reads, I think, pretty evidently, that it would be unlawful for you to smoke a joint on your front porch if viewable by the street. That's going to get fixed, for instance.
Right.
And there's quite a few other things. There's quite a few other things that are right now just are messed up language in that need fixing. That Fetgetter and Durbin put it together, and they're both more than willing to make changes. Okay, so we could maybe, if we have some time at the end, talk about that one more, but let's just move on.
Okay.
All right, so House Bill 2004 is the refiled 3228, which is the omnibus for last year. And I have been told by Fetgetter and Durbin, don't waste your time on it because it's in the process of being totally redone. Okay, so effectively 2004 is pretty much just a shell bill, right?
Okay, then we'll just look at it as a shell and move forward.
All right. So the next ones, 2012, I'll say something about that in a second. 2023, 2024, 2025 are all shell bills. Now, 3 of those are from Fetgetter, right? And so, we have some ideas of what he's planning. There are a few things that he and I have talked about. He's going to be listening to other people's needs, of course, and they're placeholders for those. Townley's shell bill is a different story, however, right?
Yeah, Townley is the one who wanted to limit the advertising last year.
Yep. So what is it? Tammy Townley,
Right.
tried to prohibit cannabis advertising last year. And what she wants to do, and thanks to Teresa Tehran, I was talking to her just before we went on tonight, and happy birthday, Teresa. She was telling me what she got from Townley about Townley's intentions. And basically Townley's intentions was to get dispensaries even farther away from schools and from daycares and so on. And so daycares, as you may realize, are just very, very abundant. And Townley basically wants to push dispensaries as far as possible away from any of those kinds of facilities. As if a 4-year-old in a dispensary is going to be a 4-year-old in a daycare is going to even have a clue as to what a dispensary is. By the time that 4-year-old, right, is 17 years old, we will be a country, presumably, that will have had cannabis legalized for many years. It just doesn't make sense to me. And, imagine this situation that if you're in a small town with a very small built up area, there's all these little towns that have just one built up street, right? Or one built up intersection. And that's where the dispensary is, but that's also where the daycare is. Effectively, that'll mean no daycare in that, no dispensary in that city, right? Or that town. So, that's probably something that Townley is hoping will come as a result. But presumably, this is not a bill that's going to go anywhere either, right? It's just way too extreme.
I think they're going to have to, and I think most of them are coming around to realize that there's a lot of money in medical marijuana. And if they wouldn't fight it so much, I mean, they're fighting it isn't going to slow it down. It's still coming. It's still here. Everything that everybody's tried to stop is still going on. So, she's just wasting energy, I think, in my opinion. Go ahead.
All right.
Norma,
So-
you want to add anything before we go any farther?
No, we'll talk about that later, and she needs to learn some respect for the money that's coming in, right?
Yeah. All right. And everybody remember, share this, please.
And probably also just think a little bit about what it means to have personal liberty.
Right.
So the next one is really an interesting one. It's sort of humorous in a way. A bill to allow veterinarians, I just abbreviated it as vets, but veterinarians to write recommendations for animals. And so the one provision is that they have to be at least 21 or older in dog years.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Right. That's good.
Good.
That's good.
What about horses?
You've been saving that all day, haven't you?
And horse years, I guess, for horses. But initially they were going to make it like a nominal fee, right? You want to get a cannabis for your pet, then it might just be $20. But then the worry was people will game it out, right? They'll just get a recommendation for Fido, right? And they'll use it for themselves. Well, so it has to be $100 as well to prevent people from abusing it like that.
There won't be
I'm
no
not sure.
flour sold to your dog. It's
Okay,
going to be
so-
limit or
So
something.
I can be her caregiver, because I'm the one who takes care of her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right.
So somebody like, if you already have a patient card, presumably, if you want to give your pet cannabis, you already have it there. But
Yeah.
if you are not a cannabis user and the physician says, look, your dog has panic attacks or something, let's give it some cannabis to calm it down, then, excuse me, then this would be the kind of situation where you might want to get this card. And I don't know exactly what it'll look like. A picture of your pet, on it.
I'm not even sure how far to run this one up the flagpole. It's just too funny.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
too much we could do with this one.
And the idea is as well is that it's not going to include something smokable. So you're not going to teach your dog to smoke a joint, right? It's not like, bongs for bunnies.
So so I guess what they would then have to make products with THC in them for that vets approved of.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm wondering who's pushing this.
Veterinarians.
Good.
Vets want to be able to do this.
Yep.
Okay, that's great. That's
Grumpy, I ran into a bottle of horse liniment in Pennsylvania when I was traveling through there. And it was like from the 1800s. And it was cannabis was the base. It was liniment for horses.
and they were still using it. No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, it was just a bottle. That,
I know. I'm kidding.
It's an antique,
Mm-hmm.
But there's
Okay.
a lot of cannabis medicines for animals. Yes.
Okay. All right, Lawrence, let's move forward. We are already running up on almost 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's already about 40 minutes we've been on. Okay, so this one is really, I think, exciting. That they're going to basically allow people from states that already have medical programs to come here and buy using their card from that other state. So they don't need to get like a temporary card here through the OMMA. If you're coming in from Louisiana or you're coming in from Colorado or whatever, and you have a patient card there, then you could show your patient card at our local dispensary and you could buy up to the same limits as somebody in Oklahoma can.
So you're saying
Cool.
people from Arkansas will be able to come over with their Arkansas card
Yep.
and not have to buy a temporary card.
Yep.
I'd like to see that one happen, but I'm betting that one doesn't have too much support. That's a lot of money. We have a lot of people that are buying those temporary cards.
We do?
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, it'll also mean a lot of more tax dollars too, right? I suspect, because there'll be lots of people from other states who will be coming in to do that.
Right.
And,
Right. The ones that aren't willing to buy the temporary card. There's a lot of those.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
right.
those.
Yep.
Well,
It'll
we
just
need
make
what
life a lot easier for people like that, right? As opposed to having to wait for the timeline to get that card and so on and so forth. Okay, the next one is, if you're a medical marijuana business and you want to open up in unincorporated land that's not part of a city and so on and so forth, you want to open up in unincorporated land, then if that land has been zoned, it has to be zoned as agricultural for you to be able to open up there. And there's lots of nuances in that, and I'm not going to spend any time because I just, business is not my thing. I focus on patient needs, but people who are business folks might have to look at that more carefully. But I think basically the idea is that and it's not just a grow, but if you want to have a medical marijuana business outside of incorporated land, outside of cities and so forth, if it's completely unzoned, I think you're fine. But if it's zoned for something other than agriculture, that then becomes the issue.
Okay.
All right. Next, this one is a surprise. House Bill 2244, the list of the types of jobs that are safety sensitive jobs, this bill would strike from the list of safety sensitive jobs firefighters.
Which bill is this? Which one are you on?
2244.
Okay.
And so, it might be that there are firefighters who are just insistent that they can use cannabis responsibly. And so let me point out, in Canada, there is no restriction. In Canada, has full access throughout the country, and it's had medical for over 20 years. And in Canada, if you are military, you are police, there is no prohibition. There is no restriction for safety sensitive jobs.
Right.
Anybody could use cannabis. And
But there's yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
With the one qualification that you can't go to work high and you can't smoke up right before going to work and so forth. So, if you are military, then or police, I think it's 12 hours.
Right. It's set by hours. Each job has a certain number of hours you have to abstain before you can return to work.
Yep.
But they're
So
all, I think they're all less than 24.
yeah, one is 12 and one is 24. And I don't remember which. I think police are 12 hours and military is 24 hours. Right.
Okay.
So if you're military and you're on leave, you can use cannabis, but then, the 24 hours before you come back, you can't.
Yeah.
For the police, right, I believe it's 12 hours, if I recall. Canada understands cannabis well better than the United States. That the laws there much more fully accord with the science of cannabis than here. I don't know how long it's going to take for this country to get things straight. Okay, next. Shell bill from Josh West. And then 2301, no smoking or vaping of cannabis in any public park.
Picky, picky, picky.
Yeah. And Chris, you've had said things to say about that issue.
Have I?
Yeah.
Well, can they smoke cigarettes in parks?
Can they drink beer?
Every park I'm at, people are smoking cigarettes. So I don't think there should be a difference. I think this is another case of let's hide all those dirty potheads.
Yeah.
That's all
Let's
that is.
defeat it in the committee. We'll
What?
get enough people. We'll just defeat it in the committee. We'll get enough people in there to scream about it.
Okay. We
Okay.
can't hide the dirty potheads.
That's right.
Right. All right. Shell bill from Davis. The next one bothers me, from Fricks 2482, if I read it correctly, because I thought Fricks was cannabis friendly, wasn't he? Isn't he?
Well, what's he running?
So municipal employees may not own medical marijuana businesses, but municipal elected officials may. Right? So if you sit on town council,
Right.
if you sit on town council, you could own a medical marijuana business. But if you are the secretary to town council, you can't.
Yeah, I know his area, Muskogee. I know that some of the city council out there. I'm not surprised to see this, and I think I'm going to call him about this tomorrow.
Yeah. So, people should double check it because I had a lot of bills to go through. But if I read it correctly, that's what that one says. And that just strikes me as peculiar.
Well, I can tell you that, I've often said I could do several shows just on the information people call and tell me since this started. And so I've gotten numerous calls from people complaining about their city councilmen or other elected officials owning part of a dispensary or part of a grow, usually part of a grow in their district. Now, I know that we talked about this, I thought last year, the year before, maybe the first year. And I know it's possible and it's okay for them to own those businesses. We shouldn't say they can't own those businesses, but I thought there was a rule or a law that came out same time around 2612 that wouldn't allow them to own one in their district. And that seems to be where the problem is in Shawnee, Muskogee, and a few other areas. Certain people may be on both ends, city council and in their own district have a grow.
Just looking at the comments, Starla Morgan Norwood says that you can't smoke cigarettes in public parks.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, then I guess we just can't smoke cannabis in public parks.
Yeah.
That's some of them, not all of them.
Okay.
And Krista asked us, early on, we asked people to ask us to look at any bills in particular. 2301 was one that she asked about, which is the no smoking vaping in parks.
Okay. And somebody asked earlier about the rumors about fees and licensing going up, but we hadn't gotten to a bill on that, so I hadn't brought it up yet, but I'll just mention it now. That was way back at the beginning also.
Yeah, my guess is the following, that it's going to be in the language that will be replacing the 3228 omnibus. So there is a move from, I think Durbin's in support of it. Apologize if I'm wrong, but I think he's in support of capping licenses and raising fees, with various qualifications. And I just, again, business stuff is just not my forte, so I don't want to get into it, but that's certainly moving the program in a way to something that might be different than the picture that we had of it early on for 788, right? That anybody could get in with just $2,500, but things change. This will just be a topic for another show, I suspect.
For this particular subject, I'm going to fall back and play through my own head that disclaimer we said out loud to everybody else at the beginning, where we said there's a lot of bills filed, not all of them are going to get to the end, and there's going to be a lot of changes. And I'm going to save my rant about that, but we may get to it later.
Yep. But I do know that there is a lot of talk about those kinds of issues. We have obviously such a huge number of licenses that there's talk about trying to make some changes in those regards. Okay, let's move on. So let's see. Shell bill from Kennedy, resubmission of 3228 from Eccles. That was just a quick glance. That's the way it looked to me. I don't know if there's anything else in there, but it's 113 pages. And I took it to be just the omnibus again, and that's going to be revised again. If anybody's looked at that more thoroughly and there's something else in it, let me know. But that's what my glance told me.
I talked to him about that this morning. Yeah. We had a meeting phone call for about an hour this morning, and that was a great share of it was about Able, moving him to Able. And yeah, he's got plenty of reasons. It sounds justifiable. I think it's probably going to be the best solution.
Yeah. And Fetgetter has brought this up as well, that we need to move the OMMA out of the Department of Health.
Right.
For a variety of reasons. Obviously in light of something like COVID, the Department of Health has sort of other things to do that don't track very much with cannabis. But there's also just a lot of hurdles that they face in terms of the process needed for hiring, and just the bureaucracy of the Department of Health is such that it doesn't turn out to be a good place
Right.
for marijuana.
Right. And though this will surprise some people, apparently the ABLE Commission is the biggest one opposed to this. They don't want to have to take care of it.
They don't want the hot potato.
They
So
don't want the hot potato.
ABLE handles alcohol. What else does it handle?
Uh,
Anything else?
no, that's it, isn't it, Norma?
I don't know of anything else, but maybe it could be a standalone agency.
That has been a recommendation for over a year. So
But it's been made very clear that's not going to happen. That's why he's decided to move it to ABLE.
Okay.
Next best thing.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of good reasons. It made sense. It made sense. There's a lot to work out, I'm sure, but it sounded reasonable this morning.
yeah, and I just noticed it was either in 2674 or just in the resubmissions of 3228 that there's going to be a medical marijuana advisory board. So it's going to be an evolution from the food and safety board. And I really think it's very important to make sure that there's appropriate patient representation on it, that it's not all businesses. And the way it looks right now, the language for that board, it's going to be businesses and law enforcement. So I just think that it needs to be thought through more fully. And as they get to the new language, I'll hopefully be able to make some suggestions.
And is there any time frame on that board, like the food safety board? Is that an indeterminate term you serve for? Why is there no turnover? Why are we not seeing new faces? I can't remember the last time a patient advocate called me and asked me what I thought.
Yeah, and I'm not going to complain too much about it, but it seems to me that if you are the patient advocate sitting on the food and safety board, you should have monthly events where people can bring to your attention concerns that you can bring to that committee. You'll also, if you are the patient representative on that board, you should not be the owner or have a financial interest in any marijuana businesses. So I think that there are some concerns that need to be brought in, as well as that there should be parents, right, of child card holders. There should be caregivers, right? We really need to bring in the voices for the people who are using cannabis, rather than it just being law enforcement, issues of diversion, businesses, concerns of businesses. I just don't feel like we have a mechanism of interaction with that board. We don't have voices for the people on that board. So that's just a concern of mine. That in every way, I want our program to really pay attention to the needs of people with serious medical concerns.
Okay, we are coming up on an hour already, so let's go about 5 more minutes and that's it. We'll have to do another show.
Well, yeah, there's quite a few left. Let me see if I could run through the highlights. Allow drive-throughs, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Next one is a shell bill. Now, here's one that's really disturbing. This one probably is never going to go anywhere, but listen to this one, right? 2812. This person, Sneed, Gesundheit, wants to, I'm sorry, that's bad here. Sneed wants to prohibit cannabis businesses from using cash.
So no, he wants them to use a performance bond issued by state insurance. So he's after money. It's just a money grab. All right, move on. We don't have enough time to tear him up yet.
Scanridge, this is just if federal government legalizes cannabis, then dispensaries could sell. I mean, that pharmacies could sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Raider is a bill that sets out the qualifications for the director of testing labs. Then there's a couple from Brooks that just, it's language is not of consequence. DOM is a bill that says that you can't carry or use firearms while you're under the influence of marijuana, with a qualification if while you're under that influence it would result in abnormal behavior. That's problematic, as you can imagine, because who's going to be the one that's going to be deciding what that abnormal behavior is?
Right.
But he wants to roll back our Second Amendment rights. And then Paxton, this is a really serious one. So this is one of the ones that we're going to have to talk about more. Paxton, it's a bill about other things, and then it's snuck in there that if you are a cannabis business, let's say you're a dispensary, and somebody comes in and you sell cannabis to them, and you got somehow, for some reason, you made a mistake, and they're using a fraudulent card. Maybe they're like, they stole their older brother's card or something like that. They look enough the same. Right now, it's just a finable offense. If the dispensary mistakenly sells it to somebody who's not eligible, it's a fine. Paxton wants to turn it into felony trafficking. So, imagine, your 20-year-old brother has a card, you're 17 years old, you look a lot like him, you steal his card and his driver's license, you go to the dispensary, buy cannabis, somehow law enforcement finds out, the dispensary then gets charged with felony trafficking. Okay.
That's just over the top, but go ahead. Go ahead. Maybe we'll have to start the next one with that one. Maybe we can get maybe we can even, I think I have his number. Maybe we can even get a message back and forth with him and figure out why.
I could get through the rest in about 3 minutes. Okay. Paxton just sort of shaping the language about what it means to be an employee. An employee doesn't include an independent contractor or volunteer, but independent contractors and volunteers could still be subject to workplace testing. This Hicks one, it's just other stuff. Taylor, OMA third-party contracting rules, the rules for them taking bids and so on. Hicks, not applicable. Daniels wants not only to have, when a business has to take some of their cannabis and turn it into waste, it has to be, first of all, put into 10-pound batches. But here's the kicker. It has to be tested. So before you throw it away, before you send it into waste management, you got to get it tested. You got to get your garbage tested before you toss it out.
That's just funny, but go ahead. Keep moving.
I got the two from Stanridge mixed up.
That's okay.
696 is pharmacies can carry marijuana if federal law changes. The previous one was that it's a prescription drug bill and it just points out that marijuana is not a prescription. And then the Raider one, not applicable. Bergstrom exempts marijuana possession from felony possession for repeat offenders.
That's good.
Yep. Then 862 from Paxton just clarifies what the boundaries are, that if it's 1,000 feet from a school, it's a school entrance to the nearest property line of the dispensary. And then 1033 is going to be grandfathering in the issue about exactly what it means to be 1,000 feet away from a school, as will probably the refilings of the omnibus from last year.
Okay, go ahead and unshare that, and let's bring all three of us back up. This computer is about to die on me.
I need about 1 minute.
Did we just lose Chris?
It looks like it. Our host is gone. Now what do we do?
we can say scary
There
things.
he is.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I'm assuming Chris is going to be back in a minute, but we will probably dig into some of these in greater detail. And like I said, I had to go through all these pretty quickly. I went through them last night and today. There's lots of details. I apologize if I got anything wrong. Bring it to my attention. Send me a message, please. If I did get something wrong, I'll update this web page. Here's Chris back. I'll update the page.
Don't let him in. Don't let him in.
You're muted, Chris.
Oh, he's gone.
Chris, you're muted.
All right, how about now?
There you are.
Okay, one computer died. I had to jump on the one computer died. I had to jump on the other computer. There wasn't enough plugs to plug everything to that computer, so I couldn't have it charging while I was on. And you went over an hour, Lawrence, so it's your fault.
No, because we started 5 minutes late.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
Anyway, while we're still live, right?
Yes.
Can I have 1 minute?
Of course you can, Norma. Go ahead.
All right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 7, actually 8 bills that have to do with initiative petition. 4 of them, 2 and 2, are the same. I don't know what that's about. And Paxton, Lonnie Paxton from Ada, you people down there need to get yourself into paying attention down there. He wants everybody that's going to gather signatures to have to get a background check.
That's
That
not
would
Paxton.
have
Wait,
really
wait,
killed 788.
wait. Is that Paxton? Are you sure that's Paxton?
Yes.
Okay, he's not Ada though. He's over here just west of
Oh,
me.
you're right. Who am I thinking of in Ada? That's right.
That's McCourtney.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Yeah. So
that we've
Paxton's
got
just
we've
west
got
of
8
me.
bills having to do with initiative petition changes, and some of them are about raising the percentage that it has to pass by. And so I kind of get that. So we're going to have to do some talking and some compromising.
That's the one that Fedgetter filed, is it not?
Well, there's more than one.
Right, but he filed one that's going to change, that wants to change it from 51% to
60 or
to
2/3.
to
His says
2/3.
2/3. And then
Or
there's 2
Constitution.
others that say 60%.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to save that rant too.
The way
Okay.
I understand the Constitution of Oklahoma, it's not like the Constitution of the US government. It's basically when we say we don't trust our legislature to preserve what we want, we put it in the Constitution.
When we're talking about constitutional amendments, that's a different discussion than just regular initiative petition. This is for referendum or initiative petition.
Yeah, I don't think it should be changed at all. But again, we're going to have to sit on that one for a minute, really. Let's just sit on that one because we could get started on that and go for another hour. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. You two stay right there and we'll say bye to everybody. We will come back and do this again. As you see, we had to kind of cut it short. We kind of try and keep things at about an hour. We know everybody loses interest after a while, but maybe we'll come back as soon as tomorrow. Who knows? I'll check with Lawrence and Norma and see how their schedules are, and we'll get it done. So until next time, folks, stay grumpy. See you on the road.